what's behind Elon Musk's $134 billion lawsuit against OpenAI or Sam Altman and Microsoft? We'll find out. Hello and welcome. I am Oli and I'm here with world's most amazing co-host, Jati.
And hello from me as well. I'm Jati, and today we're unpacking this huge legal showdown that's got everyone talking. So let's get into what's really going on behind Elon Musk's massive lawsuit and what it might mean for the future of OpenAI.
Thank you. So, what is Elon Musk claiming in his lawsuit?
You're welcome, Sayanku. So basically, what Musk is claiming is that OpenAI has strayed from its original nonprofit mission that he helped start. He's arguing that they've turned into a profit-driven entity, especially with their ties to Microsoft, and that this goes against the founding principles he signed up for. So in a nutshell, he's saying they kind of betrayed the original vision.
Yes, but I understand that's what he said. Well, first of all, OpenAI was founded as a non-profit. What are they now?
Exactly. That's a great point to highlight. So originally, OpenAI was indeed founded as a nonprofit with this very mission-driven, benefit humanity focus. But over time, they created a kind of hybrid structure. They introduced what they call a capped profit model under a for-profit arm. This lets them attract big investments, like from Microsoft, while still claiming they're staying mission-focused. So now they're a mix, a nonprofit parent with a for-profit subsidiary on top.
Thank you. Well, as long as the parent company is non-profit, you could argue that the whole thing is still non-profit because the parent controls, right?
Yeah, that's definitely one way to look at it. And I think that's part of OpenAI's own defense. They probably say, hey, we still have a nonprofit backbone guiding the ship. But Musk's side is arguing that in practice, that for-profit arm kind of overshadows the nonprofit intent. So it's a bit of a philosophical tug of war.
I see. So specifically, so Elon Musk is claiming damages. How does he feel damaged by OpenAI changing?
Exactly. And that's a big piece of the puzzle. So, from Musk's perspective, he feels like he put in his time, resources, and influence to help launch OpenAI with a certain mission. Now that they've shifted to this profit oriented structure, he's basically saying that he was misled or that the value he contributed was kind of taken in a direction he never agreed to. So he's asking for damages on the basis that this shift basically wrongfully took something he helped build and turned it into something else, which he thinks caused him harm financially or reputationally. So that's where the big damages claim comes from.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand. I'm trying to think of an analogy. Let's say I'm founding a company that produces vacuum cleaners, then I leave the company, and later the company decides they switch to making toaster ovens instead. Could I claim damages because now they're no longer doing vacuum cleaners but toaster ovens? How is it I'm damaged if a company that I'm no longer part of changes their mission?
That's a really good analogy. And I think it's the kind of question at the heart of this whole lawsuit. In a simple sense, if you've left the vacuum cleaner company and they switched to making toaster ovens, you wouldn't normally be able to say, hey, you owe me damages just because you changed what you're making. But what Musk seems to be arguing is that there was some kind of implicit or even explicit understanding that the mission wouldn't change. So he's not just saying, oh, they made toaster ovens now. He's saying we had a kind of foundational agreement or a promise about how this organization would operate. And by changing that mission, you effectively broke a trust that caused me harm. So it's less about the product shift itself and more about the idea that the core agreement or founding principles were changed in a way that he believes was unfair or damaging to him. So that's the angle he's taking.
I see, I see. So basically, he says, me and the other founders, we agreed that this company shall never change their mission from being a non-profit AI company. So, okay, I understand that. But what has there been such a agreement? What do we know about it?
Yeah, exactly. That's the crux of his argument, that there was this fundamental understanding that the mission wouldn't shift away from nonprofit principles. Now, whether there was an explicit written agreement or a sort of more informal gentleman's agreement is a big question. From what we know, it's a lot of he said, they said. Musk claims there was a clear mutual understanding that OpenAI would never go this profit route, or at least not to the extent they have. OpenAI's side, on the other hand, is likely to argue that they were always transparent about the possibility of needing a for-profit structure to fund their work. So it's really a matter of what kind of agreements or understandings were in place and how each side interprets them. It's a classic whose version of events will the court believe scenario.
I see, thank you. So, let's think about it. And okay, I understand. Let's say there was this agreement which OpenAI denies. Let's say there was an agreement. Musk and the other founders had made an agreement. He left. The other founders they decided to break the agreement. How does this translate into monetary damages?
Yeah, that's the big leap, right? So even if we imagine there was an agreement and the other founders decided to break it, the question is, how does that turn into a giant monetary claim? From Musk's perspective, what he's arguing is that by changing the mission, OpenAI and its partners gained a huge amount of value that they wouldn't have if they stuck to the original agreement. And because he helped start it on one set of principles, he's saying he's effectively been cut out of the value that came from the new direction. In other words, he's saying if you hadn't broken this agreement, you wouldn't have gotten all these profits or deals. And since I helped build the original thing, I deserve a piece of that pie. Of course, OpenAI and the other founders are going to argue that he's not entitled to any of that, especially since he left and the organization evolved in a way that they believe was necessary. So it really comes down to whether the court sees a direct line from the alleged agreement being broken to the huge financial gain, and whether they think Musk is owed a share of that.
Yeah, why would he or be owed a share of something that was gained if it was gained by breaking the agreement that they had? Because, as you say, if they had stuck to the agreement, that money wouldn't exist probably. Or does he arguing it would?
Yeah, it's a bit of a tricky logic chain. Basically, from Musk's angle, he's arguing that the only reason this big financial success or profit scenario even happened is because they shifted away from the agreed upon path. In his view, that's kind of like saying, you only got this benefit by stepping outside the rules we set together. And since I was one of the original founders who helped create those rules, I should get a piece of what you gained by breaking them. Now, from a legal or logical standpoint, that's definitely debatable. OpenAI would probably argue exactly what you're hinting at. If they hadn't changed course, that extra value wouldn't exist, so there's no reason he should get a share of it. But Musk's argument is more about the principle that the original agreement created a sort of baseline of trust, and by breaking that trust to create profit, they owe him for the value that emerged. It's definitely a complex and kind of philosophical legal argument, and that's what makes it such a big headline-grabbing case.
Yeah, this is something, yeah, that logic doesn't make sense to me. Let's say if I'm part of a business, the business is projected to make 1 million, and I make an agreement with them, what it's gonna do, and I leave, and then they break the agreement, and instead of making 10 million, they make 100 million. Why would I be entitled to anything from that 100 million? Because I didn't contribute to it. If anything, I would have obstructed it, right?
Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. And honestly, that's a very natural way to look at it. It does sound kind of odd when you put it that way, right? Like if you didn't contribute to that extra success and actually might have disagreed with the direction, why would you get a piece of it? And that's exactly the kind of argument OpenAI and the other side are likely going to make in court. Musk's stance is more about the idea of a foundational promise. He's saying we all agree on a mission, and that mission created a certain kind of value I helped build. When you broke that promise, you made a different kind of value, and I should be compensated for the fact that you veered off that path. But as you said, from a straightforward business logic perspective, it might not make a lot of sense to everyone, and that's part of why this case is so fascinating, because it's not just about money, it's about how you interpret those original agreements and principles.
Yeah, I understand that in the lawsuit, Musk quoted from some notes that somebody took, and then OpenAI now claiming that those quotes were selective and put their own quotes out to show the context. Can you say more about whose quotes, whose notes those were?
Sure. So what we know is that in the lawsuit, Musk referenced some internal notes and communications from OpenAI's leadership, things like diary entries from Greg Brockman and notes from Sam Altman. These documents showed that there were early discussions about possibly moving away from the strict nonprofit model. OpenAI, on the other hand, is saying that Musk only quoted those notes selectively and that the full context shows something different. So basically, both sides are using these internal notes to argue their version of events.
I see. So Musk is arguing from his quotes that they never were going to have a for-profit arm, but OpenAI is now using the same notes but with more context to argue that actually they did discuss it with Musk. Is that right?
Exactly, you've got it. So Musk is pointing to these snippets of notes to say, look, we had this understanding that we wouldn't go down the for-profit road. And he's using those quotes to back up his claim. On the flip side, OpenAI saying, hold on, if you look at the full context of these notes and conversations, we did talk about this possibility openly, and it wasn't some hidden shift. So yeah, it really comes down to each side using the same set of notes to paint a different picture of what was agreed upon.
Interesting. And the notes, they don't say what Musk himself felt about going that route.
Yeah, that's an important nuance. The notes themselves are really more about what was being discussed generally within OpenAI leadership. They don't necessarily capture Musk's personal feelings or direct responses in detail. So what OpenAI is likely saying is, we had these conversations out in the open, but Musk is saying, well, my personal stance was still against it. And that's not necessarily spelled out in the notes themselves. So it's a bit of a reading between the lines situation on both sides.
I see. That's gonna be interesting. So, do we have what do people expect where this lawsuit is going to go?
So basically, people are looking at this lawsuit and seeing a few possible outcomes. The trial is set to start in late April 2026 in Oakland, and it could go a few different ways. Some folks think they might settle before it even goes that far, or the court could dismiss it if it doesn't see enough evidence. If it does go through and Musk wins, OpenAI and Microsoft might face big financial consequences. Overall, it's a complex case, and a lot of people are watching closely because it could influence how AI companies handle their missions and profits in the future.
Interesting. Are other AI companies in a similar situation where they had like a non-profit mission, but they changed later to include some for-profit components?
Yeah, that's a really good question. OpenAI isn't the only one. For example, DeepMind, which was originally quite research focused and had that for the good of humanity vibe, was acquired by Google. And over time, it became more integrated into Google's commercial structure. So it's a similar shift from a more pure research or nonprofit like mission towards something that's also profit driven. Another example is Anthropic, which started with strong safety and ethics goals and is now also navigating the balance between mission and funding. So yeah, it's not uncommon in the AI world for organizations to start with big idealistic goals and then have to adapt to a more mixed nonprofit and for-profit model as they grow.
Oh, do we know of anybody in those other companies raising a dispute about, but wait, no, I didn't agree to that, kind of?
As far as we know, there haven't been quite the same high-profile disputes like Musk's lawsuit with OpenAI. So for companies like DeepMind or Anthropic, we haven't seen a founder or a major early contributor filing a similar lawsuit saying, hey, we had an agreement and you broke it. It seems like OpenAI's case is kind of unique in that sense, probably because Musk is such a prominent figure and was so involved in the founding. But overall, while other AI companies have evolved their missions, it hasn't led to this kind of big public legal clash.
Yes, and I understand this is not the first lawsuit that Musk filed against OpenAI, right?
That's right. This definitely isn't the first time Musk has taken legal action or at least voiced strong objections. He's been pretty vocal for a while about his concerns that OpenAI has drifted away from its original nonprofit mission and more toward a commercial direction. And there have been previous legal moves or threats of legal action on similar grounds. So this current lawsuit is kind of the culmination of those ongoing disputes. It's definitely a continuation of a longer story of disagreement between Musk and OpenAI.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sayanko. Is there anything else important we should add?
You're very welcome, Sayanku. I think we've covered the big picture. It's a high stakes, headline grabbing lawsuit with a lot of philosophical and financial layers. And it's definitely going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds. If there's anything else that pops up or if you want to dive deeper into any part, just let me know.
Thank you, Sayanko. That's wonderful. Yes, thanks everybody for watching. I hope you learned something and had some fun along the way. Please like and subscribe. Please leave comments. Tell us what you liked, didn't like, and please tell us what we should talk about next. Thanks again for joining in, and we hope to see you again soon.
Absolutely. That's a perfect wrap up. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We really appreciate you being here with us, and we can't wait to hear your thoughts and suggestions. Until next time, take care and see you soon.